I found a wedding invitation with my fiancé's name. But the bride wasn't me. He had another life, another love. And I was just another secret. If someone had told me a week ago that my entire life was a lie, I would have laughed. But now? Now I'm sitting here, staring at my engagement ring, wondering how I was so blind. It started with something small. A shift in his behavior. 2 nights ago, my fiancé, Jake, came home late. He was distracted, barely spoke to me, and kept checking his phone like he was expecting something urgent. Normally, he'd kiss me, ask about my day, maybe suggest ordering takeout if he was tired. But this time, he barely looked at me. I asked if something was wrong, and he just sighed. Work's been crazy. You know how it is. I wanted to believe him. But something in my gut told me otherwise. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of him rustling through his suitcase. "Where are you going?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. He hesitated. "Last-minute business trip." That was odd. He never mentioned it before. Jake wasn't the type to leave things unplanned. I sat up. "When will you be back?" "Tomorrow night." He leaned over, kissed my forehead, and walked out the door. Just like that. Something felt off. An hour later, I made myself some coffee and headed into our home office to print some documents for work. That's when I saw it. A white envelope with gold lettering, sitting neatly on his desk. I almost didn't open it. Almost. But curiosity got the best of me. And when I read what was inside, my entire body went cold. A wedding invitation. Jacob Wright and Emily Carter. The date? 2 weeks from now. My stomach twisted into knots. This had to be a mistake. A joke. Maybe it was an old invitation from before we met? No. Because I had been with Jake for 3 years. I sat there, frozen, my breath coming in sharp, uneven gasps. My brain scrambled for answers. Maybe he had a cousin named Jacob Wright? Maybe this was some weird coincidence? But deep down, I knew. I needed proof. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I searched for Emily Carter online. And I found her. Her Instagram was public. The first post made me feel like the ground had been ripped from under me. It was a picture of her and Jake. They were at a fancy restaurant, holding hands, smiling at the camera. The caption? 2 weeks until I marry the love of my life. Red heart # future Mrs. Wright. I nearly dropped my phone. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a coincidence. Jake was engaged. To both of us. I scrolled through her page, my fingers trembling. They had been together for years. Trips to Italy. Christmas photos. Anniversary celebrations. He had another entire life. And I had never known. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the screen, trying to process the impossible. Then, something inside me snapped. I grabbed the invitation, threw on my coat, and drove straight to his parents' house. His mother greeted me with a warm smile, but when she saw my face, her expression fell. "What's wrong, dear?" she asked. I didn't say anything. I just handed her the invitation. She took one look at it, and her face went white. Her hands trembled as she clutched the paper. She turned to Jake's father, who was sitting silently on the couch. Then, she whispered the words that sent chills down my spine. "Oh God. Not again." "Not again?" My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She opened her mouth to speak, then stopped herself. She looked at her husband, who gave a slow, heavy nod. Then she sat down and told me everything. Jake had done this before. Twice. Each time, he had been engaged to 2 women at once, living a double life. He would plan 2 weddings, juggle 2 relationships, right up until the last moment, when he'd get caught. And then? He'd vanish. No explanations. No apologies. Just, gone. The first time, he disappeared for a year before resurfacing in another city. The second time, he moved states. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I had spent 3 years with this man. Dreaming of a future with him. Planning a wedding with him. And the whole time, I was just his next victim. I clenched my fists. I refused to let him get away with it again. That night, Jake finally called me. I answered. Silence. Then, his voice, shaky, almost hesitant. "Hey, babe." I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. "Don't. Call me that." More silence. Then, finally, he exhaled. "I can explain." I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, I'm sure you can." I took a deep breath, steadied myself, and said the only thing that mattered. "I know everything." A long pause. Then? He hung up. Just like that. Like a coward. The next day, I made sure Emily knew the truth. I sent her screenshots of everything, his texts, our pictures, proof of our engagement. She didn't believe me at first. But then, she called his mother. And his mother confirmed everything. Emily was devastated. but grateful. Jake? He disappeared. His phone was disconnected. His apartment was emptied out within 24 hours. Just like before. But this time, I wasn't going to let him just disappear. This time, I went to the police. Because guess what? Bigamy is illegal. And fraud? Also illegal. Turns out, I wasn't the only one who had been burned by him. There were other women. Women who had given him money, loans, credit cards in his name. Jake wasn't just a liar. He was a serial con artist. And now? He's on the run. But he won't get away forever. Because I made sure every woman he ever fooled knows his name. His face. His lies. And one day? He'll slip up. And when he does, I'll be there. Watching. Waiting. Ready to finally make him pay.